Hi everyone, it's Autumn. We're gonna see how I do recording a video. It may or may not go up, but at the very least, I'll get more comfortable with recording. I made a little list of things I wanted to talk about because I don't do too well on camera, but so the first thing I want to talk about is that I haven't actually watched the most recent video we put on the channel. I know it went up. I have a brief understanding of what went into it. I could go watch it, or I could just pull in the memories, but I know that Josh fronted. Which is the main reason I haven't watched it. Not that I have anything against Josh, just I'm very insecure. I didn't Josh didn't make himself known for a very long time, specifically because, from my understanding, he knew that it would freak me out. We're at a place where obviously I know and it's okay, but I still tend to get really I just don't know what it means, and that scares me. It also concerns me that there's a part of the system that has so much difficulty communicating. Like, what does that say for our mental state? So I will go watch it at some point, but it pushes me enough just to know he exists. I don't really need to see him right away. And I've communicated and discussed that within the system with the alters I'm in communication with, and with my husband, and we think it's a pretty healthy thing for me. I don't want to push myself. We also don't each. Not every alter needs to see every video we post. That would be exhausting. So, yeah, I don't know everything James talked about, but I do know he mentioned that I was dormant for a couple of days, which was weird and equal parts absolutely terrifying and so relaxing and freeing. So I think the biggest lesson I learned is that it's okay if I don't front all the time, which I have learned that lesson a couple times. It doesn't always stick, so we'll see what happens. But it was solid. It was more than 48 hours between when I fronted, and it freaks me out a bit because I don't have all the information of what we did during that time. And it's one of those things that nothing's being hidden from me. And honestly, when I dig deep, like if I'm like, well, what happened during this period, I know, I do get those memories. But it's so much time's worth of memories that I don't have it all, especially not right away. The more time passes, the more I'm remembering, or like Seth will mention something that happened or ask a question, and I'll be able to answer him about something that happened when I wasn't present. So the memories are like slotting in. I picture it almost like downloading files. They don't download right away. And the bigger the download, the longer it takes. So, oh, this is stressful. But it was healthy. It was good. I'm glad James had a lot of fun. Yes, he got tired from running so much, but he honestly, not only was healthy for me to be away, it was healthy for him to be present. He had a good time. Even when I first fronted in, James and I were switching back and forth for a while. Like, James wanted to get the video he had recorded, uploaded himself. So he took the front again for that, and editing, it took him way longer than he thought it would. Not even editing, I think the uploading process. I have an auditory processing disorder, so I have to watch things with subtitles, so we pay a lot of attention to what our YouTube subtitles look like. And I think that's what was taking him forever. And so we fronted for that and for dinner, and then he and Seth watched another movie. Whatever. Fast and Furious movie. I'm glad Seth is able to watch those with James, because I bowed out after the 6th. I don't even remember, which should tell you how bad those movies are. They are so nonsensical. That's not how anything works, but Seth enjoys them and James is having fun, so I'll let them have it. But, the timing actually worked out well, because today I've been fronting, and about midway through the day, and James was somewhat aware this morning, but I'm pretty set in the front, I guess. It's not the word I'm looking for, but that's the word we're gonna have to use. Which worked out well. My mom called yesterday, and James let it go to voicemail, and then sent a text being like, we'll call you back, because she doesn't really want to talk to anyone other than me. At least that's what I think. So today I called her, but she called while Seth and I were watching something, so I didn't answer, but I called her back later. I called her back a couple hours ago. I knew she was coming to town this week. Turns out she's going to be here tonight. We're meeting her for dinner. So I would be a lot more freaked out about that if I hadn't just gotten some really, really good rest. So I'm happy. I'm looking forward to seeing my mom. And there's not going to be all that pressure for me to... I'm not going to be too tired from fronting to keep fronting around her. I'm going to be able to be present and enjoy and engage in conversations with my mom without having to freak out about the DID because I'm too tired, because I'm always tired, because I front more often than I probably should. But, so that's going on. She's going to be in town almost a full week, so we'll see how my energy levels are throughout that, but I'm excited. We've been reconnecting and it's been good. Still a little... There's compromises with how she's reacting about the DID. Compromises that honestly make me uncomfortable and are somewhat hurtful, but I know she's pushing herself, so I'm willing to meet her where she's at. And we're taking steps towards her maybe actually accepting. That's the goal. Not that we need her acceptance, but it would be nice if she could love me for us. And I know that sounds so weird, but I'm an alter as much as anyone else. Despite having the original name, I am not the original. I consider myself her daughter. A bunch of the other alters don't. Some do. But I don't know. I think it'll be healthiest for us in the long run, both for us as a system and for us as a family unit, if they become more accepting, because say 10, 20 years from now, integrations happen. The majority of the system at the moment wants nothing to do with them. And they're so gung-ho about, we want our daughter to be whole. At the moment, if we were to all integrate, I don't think we'd want anything to do with them. So I'm hoping that if they're willing to extend the olive branches, that as we grow as a system, as we change, we're still willing to have a relationship, because they're working on it. They really are. They've even mentioned, my mom even mentioned that, like, she was uncomfortable with me switching around in the house when we were up there for Tennessee. But she mentioned something along the lines of, like, we talked about maybe moving up there at some point. And I mentioned, like, I don't know how comfortable you guys would feel with us being around with the DID. And she was like, there's nothing that would make us not want you to live near us. And that was a really cool thing to hear, because I really didn't think that would be the conversation. There's still hurdles. Still praying for more acceptance from my sister, because we're not very close. We used to be, and I'm praying that we will be again. She was a lot more In the past, we've gone there and she's literally not said an entire word to me for a week, other than like a curt yes or no. But this time she actually had conversations. Like nothing deep, nothing deep at all, but she'd actually start conversations about what she was up to or what was going on. And that was cool. That was really cool. And it was such a small step, but such an answer to prayer. So I'm actually listening to worship music at the moment, and the song that just popped on is Anything Is Possible, and it's just so perfect. But, so that would be a bit of a hurdle if we moved up there, or just anything, and my dad's working on it. He's very much of the opinion that I'll need to be one whole daughter, which he's well within his rights to pray for that, and I'm totally fine with him praying for that. But, like I said, I don't know what that would look like. But yeah, I'm excited for this week with my mom. I think that's what that whole tangent was about, was I'm looking forward to going to dinner with her tonight. I'm actually looking forward to maybe meeting her a time or two without Seth around. We even talked about her coming over one day to bake cookies with me. Like, I think it was a year ago. I was no contact with my entire family. I was completely no contact, wasn't talking to anybody. And after some therapy, after some advice from some friends, I decided to go ahead and open the door and reach out and called them. And we had very few conversations where neither of us really talked about anything of substance because nobody wanted to push things. And then I called to let them know that I was getting married. And then they offered to pay for the wedding because Seth and I were planning on just getting a courthouse wedding because we couldn't afford anything else. But no, they paid for a whole wedding and for part of the honeymoon. But it's just so amazing that literally a year ago I was no contact, and talking with Seth about if we got married, whether or not we would even tell my parents. And even when we first did the wedding planning, I was talking about one of my closest friends was both my wedding planner and my matron of honor. And I was telling her I didn't want to do a dad-daughter dance. That was one of the hard lines I had. I told her from the very start that would be too hard because my dad and I always had this. We had this song called Cinderella by Stephen Curtis Chapman. That was our song that I always knew I would dance with him at my wedding too. And while I was no contact, it actually came on. It was played as a daddy-daughter dance at a wedding that Seth and I were at, and I wasn't okay. I've yet to make it through a wedding without a breakdown in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a happy breakdown or a sad breakdown or an anxiety breakdown or an allergic reaction. So hopefully that'll happen eventually, but so I told my friend, like, no, I don't want to have a dance. I just can't. And I think it was within a month of the wedding, I asked her if I could change my mind on that. And we did that, my dad and I, and it was incredible. Such a moment of healing. The whole wedding was incredible, and not just in the sense of, oh, I got married, because, oh, that was awesome, and I love it. But my family was there. My whole family was there. My sister even came. Like, we were still not talking at the time, and she agreed to come. We didn't have a conversation while we were there, but she was there, and that meant the world to me. I mentioned, it was, honestly, somebody asked me a few months ago what my favorite part of the wedding was. And there's a whole bunch of things I could have said, but the one that popped into my head was, it had nothing to do with Seth, but, because the whole thing was incredible, but of the moments, one of the moments that stuck with me the most is, so my mom was there, at the venue, obviously, helping me get ready. I slept over the night before with my matron of honor, and she helped me get ready at her place. And I have one of my alters, Evelyn. She's very motherly. She's a little older. But she's the caring one, I guess. And she was also helping me, like, just with things like, honestly, even breathing, because there were a couple times where I was so overwhelmed I was having difficulty remembering to breathe, or helping me with the hair, or just things like that. And I remember I was in the dressing room just by myself. I think it was the only time I was by myself in that room the entire time. And Evelyn was talking to me, and I said something, and I told her how grateful I was to have 3 moms there at my wedding, to have 3 women I could trust like that. Because there was a period where I thought I couldn't have any. Like, I always knew my friend would be there, but like I said, I was no contact with my parents for a while. System and I have had conflict. It's been a thing I've hated at times. So to have things that were so, I don't know, dreadful at one time become something of such joy, there aren't even words. I don't remember if I had a point and got off track or if I did hit all my things. But, trying to think, I did have one other thing on my list. Wasn't even sure if I was planning on talking about it. There's a question mark, but haven't decided yet, but I'm debating auditioning for a musical this week. Growing up, when we lived here, I was part of a theater group, and I loved it. Christian Youth Theater, CYT. It literally saved my life. I was in a really dark place, and I was making plans I would regret. And then one of the women there, I was out sick one week, and I came back, and she told me she'd missed me. And I think that's when I realized that people cared. So this theater group has been an incredibly important part of my life. It, few years after I graduated out of it, because I became an adult, they started doing Christian Community Theater, which is an adult group based off of it, where anyone can audition, but a lot of alumni do. And the very first show that they had, I was in, and it was Godspell. And it was like a dozen of us. And honestly, the director for that show was actually the same woman who'd had that moment with me all those years ago. And at that show is where I met the woman who was my matron of honor. And the woman who was my maid of honor. Like, it was awesome. But as much as I love it, I have a very up and down relationship with theater. Never feel like I'm good enough. I always feel like I'm passed over. I did not get cast for last summer's production with this group, and there was some miscommunication where I was told that I wasn't cast, and then I was listed on the cast list. And I was prepared. I was prepared to not be cast because I knew there was a lot of people and they were going to be cutting, but I wasn't prepared for the emotional roller coaster of you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. So I took a step back. I didn't even help with sets or anything for that show. So I'm debating if I want to audition this year. I really do. The auditions are Friday. They don't know about the DID. I was always either didn't know or was masking or the system was dormant because I was living with my parents again, or of people who will be in the show, at most there are 2 people who would know, who would even know that it was a thing at any point in my life. And I don't want to hide. I don't want to commit to auditioning, to rehearsals 3 times every week all summer where we have to mask. So we're not gonna mask. And I don't know if I'm up for that. Because it's one thing to tell people you have DID. It's another thing to tell people you've known that you have DID. People who've only ever known autumn, to tell them, well, it's not just autumn. You might also deal with James or Leah or Evelyn or Fitz. And it's a scary thing. I'm tentative when I share with Christian groups. Because as a generalization, I had way better experiences sharing with non-Christians than with Christians. Because Christians have this idea that you need to strive for perfect healing. And I do understand that, but I also need to live with it. I also need to... Yes, the goal is to be as like God as perfect, as healed as possible, but I need to live in the here and now. I pray almost... Well, I don't pray every day. I have a toxic relationship with God when it comes to health issues. But I pray a lot that God will heal me of my allergies. But that doesn't mean I go around eating the things I'm allergic to. It means I do keep the medicines I need on me at all time. It means I do live with an EpiPen. It means I do go to the ER somewhat frequently. And it's similar for mental health. Like, yes, if God would just heal me, yeah, that's scary, honestly. It would be a totally different change in my life. But if that's his plan for me, then yes, absolutely. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to use my coping mechanisms. It doesn't mean I'm not going to ground. It doesn't mean I'm not going to learn to communicate within the system and accept where I'm at. So, I was talking about theater. Yeah, it's a scary thing talking to people. Christians, that's where I was at. I was talking about Christians versus non-Christians. And non-Christians in general are just... Either they're just way more go with the flow, or... And they're the allies. They're the non-Christians who are absolutely against it. And there are the Christians who are totally fine with it. But in general, non-Christians, especially the LGBT plus community, I think it's because everyone in that community has made the decision to not go the easy way and hide who they are. They've all said, this is where I'm at and this is what I'm willing to admit. So when I say things like, I have DID, or when a very obviously female person introduces himself as James, if James is fronting, they just go with the flow. So that's... I just don't know what to expect from this group. And it scares me. I'm meeting with my good friend, my matron of honor, tomorrow, actually. She's definitely auditioning, and I'm going to talk to her about a lot of it. And she's a mental health counselor. She's a strong spiritual mentor. She grew up as a theater kid. She hits all the boxes to be able to help me out with this problem. And I know what she's going to say. She's going to encourage me to do it. I don't know what she's going to say beyond that, but she is going to say I should do it. So I've worked this morning on preparing an audition song. I'm thinking about doing Middle of a Moment from James and the Giant Peach, which was the first show I was ever in when I was in it as a youth. So it was actually one of the first songs that made me realize that maybe my family was screwed up, but it means I can do great emotions when I sing it. So maybe I'll go ahead and at some point record myself singing it and do that as a short or something. Let me know if you guys are interested. But so I've got a really full week of things that are really, really good, but are kind of really scary. So Those of you who are Christians, please be praying for me. Those of you who aren't, please wish me luck. But I think that's all I have to say today. I'll hopefully check back in at some point and give you an update on how it went with my mom and let you know whether or not I auditioned, let you know whether or not I got cast. Because if we do get cast, that musical is going to be a big part of our lives and is going to come up in YouTube occasionally. But, alright, this wasn't as bad as I was expecting, so hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, bye.